Hi everybody, welcome to Mitch Maths. My name is Mitch, and in this video we're going to be looking at the lowest common multiple and the highest common factor. These two things come up in exams time and time again, so it's really important that you get familiar with them. If you're unsure what a multiple is or what a factor is, then I'd recommend going and checking out this video. This is a previous video that I did explaining all about multiples and factors, what they are and how you can find them. And when you're really comfortable with what they are, then you can come and look at this video and you can learn these as well. So let's first look at the lowest common multiple then. So we know that a multiple from the last video is just the times table of that number. So it's all the numbers that that number will then multiply into. So if we're looking at the lowest common multiple between two numbers, it's essentially the lowest number that both of those numbers will multiply into. Or to put it another way, it's the smallest number that will divide by all the numbers in question. So let's look at an example of this then. So let's say if we wanted to find the lowest common multiple, we'll pick a really simple example of 4 and 5. So one way we can do this is essentially by listing all the multiples of these numbers and then finding out what is the lowest one that appears in both lists. So let's do that with 4 and 5 then. So we know that multiples are just the times table. So we'll go through the times table of 4. So we'll go 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, and we'll just go one more as well, 28. Do the same thing with the 5s in the 5 times table, so we go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So what we now then do is look down both of these lists and we try and find the lowest number that is in both lists. So we'll start at the top then, and we'll say, no, they're not the same, they're not the same, not the same. We'll work down the list and we'll say, oh, there we go, 20. 20 appears in both lists and it's the lowest number that does. So now we know that 20 is the lowest common multiple of 4 and 5. So you may have noticed then, looking at this, that the lowest common multiple in this case, which is 20, is the product of 4 and 5. So 4 times 5 is 20. And in this case, that is the lowest common multiple. However, just timesing them together doesn't always give the lowest common multiple. It will give a multiple of both, but it might not give the lowest one. So just to show you an example of then where that isn't the case, let's now pick 12 and 15. So let's now go down the 12 times table. So we've got 12, 24, 36, 48, 60, and 72. And we'll pick some of the 15 times table, so we go 15, 30, 45, 60, and 75. And if we look down these two lists, we find that the lowest number that is in both lists is 60. And 60 is the lowest common multiple of 12 and 15. And we know that 12 times 15 is not 60, it's a number that is much, much higher. It's because we know that 12 times 5 is 60 and 15 times 4 is 60. And that's how you find the lowest, that's one way of finding the lowest common multiple of these numbers. So now I want to show you guys another method of working out the lowest common multiple, and that is if you already know the prime factors of that number. So the example we're going to choose then is 18 and 30. So we know that 18, as a product of its prime factors, is 2 times 3 squared, and we know that 30 is 2 times 3 times 5. So the first step of doing this one then is to essentially write out these in full. So what I mean by that is basically to remove all the powers. So the first one we'll type 18, so we'll say it's 18 times 2 times 3 by 3, because there's 2 of them. And now we'll do the same thing with 30, although there is no powers in this one, so we'll write it out exactly the same way. So we'll say it's 2 times 3 times 5. And now what we want to do, if you want to find the lowest common multiple, we essentially pick all the numbers that make up this. But what we then do is we exclude some numbers which already appear in the other list. So let's just go through that and I'll show you what I mean. So we want to pick all the numbers that are up here. So we'll say, okay, the first one is 2. So we put 2 there. So I've already used that one. And because there's a 2 in here, and we've already used the 2 from this one, we'll get rid of this one as well, because it's already been used. Move over to the next one then, we've got 3. So the next one we'll put in is 3. And just like before, we've already got a 3 here, so we'll then remove that 3 as well, because it's already been used. Next one then, we've got another 3 here, and there's no more 3s here to cancel, but it doesn't really matter, so we've got another 3 there, so we'll put another 3. And then, last but not least, we've now got a 5 in this list, which isn't in the other one, but we'll put that as well. So it isn't in this one, so we don't have to cancel anything from this side, but we've now got that 5 in there. So that's it. So we've now taken into account all the numbers that were in these two lists, and now we just multiply all these together. So we say 2 times 3 is 6, 6 times 3 is 18, and 18 times 5 is 90. And that is our answer. That is the lowest common multiple of 18 and 30 is 90, and we've just worked it out by using the prime factors of those two numbers. The biggest thing to get your head around in this method is when you're looking at these numbers, if you've got the same number in both, you'd only use it once. You'd only use it once. And the only reason why we used 3 twice here is because this 18 had 2 3s. If 30 also had 2 3s, it would be the exact same, because we would have had this 3 here, and if it was another times 3, we would have just cancelled it out because of the one we've already used. Okay, I hope that made sense, guys. So now we'll move on to some highest common factor. Okay, so now then we can move on to the highest common factor. So in the previous video that I did, we learnt that factors were essentially numbers that multiply up into the number in question. So the highest common factor between two numbers will be the highest number that will multiply up into both numbers. Or to put it a different way, is the biggest number that will divide into all numbers in question. So it will divide into the numbers, or another way of saying that is it will multiply up into all the numbers in question. So just like the previous one then, one way we could work out the highest common factor is to list all the factors from the two numbers in question and then find the highest one. So let's pick an example of that then. So in this case, I'm going to pick 36 and 54. So if you remember to the previous video then, the way we found out the factors of these two numbers was to basically go up the times table and find them that way. So we'll start off with 1 times 36, we'll say 2 times 18, 3 times 12, 4 times 9, and 6 times 6. Okay, so moving on to 54 then, the first one will be 1 times 54. Next one, 2 times 27. Next one, 3 times 18. And the last one, 6 times 9. So now we have basically all the numbers that make up the factors for these two numbers, 36 and 54. So now what we do is look for the highest one that appears in both. So the highest one here is 54, not in this one. 36 in this one, not here. 27, not in this one. 18, bingo, there we go. 18 is the highest number that appears in both lists of factors. So now we know that the highest common factor of these two is 18. However, so just like for lowest common multiple, there is also a way of calculating the highest common factor if we know the prime factors of some numbers, and I'm going to show you guys exactly how you do that as well. So this example then we'll choose 180, which has prime factors of 2 squared times 3 squared times 5. And we'll also do 84, which has prime factors of 2 squared times 3 times 7. So if you're asked to find the highest common factor of these two numbers then, and we know it's prime factors, the first step is exactly the same as the lowest common multiple. So we need to write this out in full. So let's do that then. So we have 180 equals 2 squared, so 2 times 2 times 3 squared, which is just 3 times 3, times 5. And 84 is 2 squared, so 2 times 2, times 3, times 7. So, and we're looking for the highest common factor. So if you remember then, when we looked at lowest common multiple, if a number was used twice in both lists, we would only use it once in here. So we'd cancel out the other one and not use it, and then we'd use all the numbers in both lists. So highest common factor works slightly differently to that. So what we then do with highest common factor is we only use the numbers once that appear in both lists. So we only use the numbers once that appear in both lists. So straight off the bat then, we can look at all the numbers that don't appear in both lists. So for example, 5 only appears in this list, so we can cancel that one and not include it. 7 only appears in this list and not in that one, not include it. And then we can see this one up here has 2 3s and this one only has 1 3. So this has got one too many 3s, so we'll cancel that one out as well. So now let's have a look at it again. So now all the only numbers we've got left is 2 times 2 times 3. And that's exactly the same as what we've got in this list as well, 2 times 2 times 3. And because we're only using each number that appears in both lists once, we'll just use these numbers once to find our highest common factor. So we've got 2 2s, so we put a 2. Another 2 2s, so we put another 2. And then 2 3s, so we'll put a 3. And 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 3 is 12, and 12 is our answer. So 12 is the highest common factor between 180 and 84. It's really important that you find the distinction there between the two methods of the lowest common factor, lowest common multiple and highest common factor. The quickest way to tell if you've got the right method or not is always remember that a factor is lower than the two numbers in question and a multiple is higher than the two numbers in question. So remember for example before, our answer was 90 and that was higher than the two numbers we had in question up here. And in this case, highest common factor is 12 and that is lower than 84 and 180. So that's a really quick way just to sanity check your answer and make sure you've got the right method. I hope you find that useful. And that's how you work out the highest common factor from the product of powers. Okay guys, so that is two methods then for finding the lowest common multiple and highest common factor. One where you just list out all the multiples and factors of both and just pick the one which is the lowest or the highest. And the second method where we use the product of its prime factors, and then depending if we're looking for the lowest common multiple or highest common factor, we'll pair them off differently to find our answer. I hope you found this video useful guys. If you want to check out some more videos, go to Mitch Maths on YouTube, and I'll be throwing this on my website soon as well. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you very much.